Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All go to Sri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to today's class on the auspicious appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. Some of us have already passed half the day of the appearance day. Some of us is just starting off, and some of us may be concluding this beautiful day of Lord Nrsimhadev. Nevertheless, it's never too late to increase our hearing on this auspicious day. Maharaj is unable to give the class because he's in transit to Germany. He's in the middle of it. We were hoping that he could, but it doesn't seem like it's possible. So I have Parikshit Prabhu who is going to be filling in for Maharaj, and we will be hearing from the glories of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse 14, and it's all yours, Parikshit. Haribol.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 7, text 14. Eka mahāprabhu ara prabhu duijana, dui prabhu seve mahāprabhura caraṇa. Eka mahāprabhu ara prabhu duijana, dui prabhu seve mahāprabhura caraṇa. Eka mahāprabhu ara prabhu duijana, dui prabhu seve mahāprabhura caraṇa. Hare Krishna. If you'd like to chant it, you can unmute yourself and do that now. Hare Krishna.
Eka Mahāprabhu Hara Prabhu Duijana Dui Prabhu Seva Mahāprabhura Charana. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, let's go to the word for word. Hare Krishna. So word for word, Eka Mahāprabhu, one Mahāprabhu, or the supreme predominator. Ara Prabhu Duijana, and the other two, Nityananda and Advaita, are two prabhus, masters. Dui Prabhu, the two prabhus, Nityananda and Advaita Goswami. Seve, serve. Mahāprabhura, of the supreme predominator, Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. caraṇa, the lotus feet. Translation by His Divine Grace H.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One of them is Mahāprabhu, and the other two are prabhus. These two prabhus serve the lotus feet of Mahāprabhu. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu all belong to the same Vishnu category, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is nevertheless accepted as the supreme, and the other two Prabhus engage in his transcendental loving service to teach ordinary living entities that every one of us is subordinate to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In another place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, text 142, it is said, Ekala Ishwara Krishna Ara Saba Bhaitya. The only Supreme Master is Krishna, and all others, both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, engage in the service of the Lord. Both Vishnu Tattva as Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita, and the Jiva Tattva, Siva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, engage in the service of the Lord, But one must distinguish between the Vishnu Tattva servitors and the Jiva Tattva servitors. The Jiva Tattva servitor, the spiritual master, is actually the servitor God, as explained in the previous verses. In the absolute world, there are no such differences, yet one must observe the differences in order to distinguish the Supreme from his subordinates. Oma Gyanati Mirandasya, Gyana Gyana Shalakaya, Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasma, Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Tapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinavini. Namaste Krishna, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatyadi Shatarini. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Goratise Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Time. So the English translation again, one of them is Mahāprabhu and the other two are prabhus. These two prabhus serve the lotus feet of Mahāprabhu. So the Panchatattva, they are being described here, Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu first. Then Gadadhara and Srivas, they are the ones that make up the Panchatattva, as we all know. Or if you're not new, then you know it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the most merciful form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Padayate, Krishnaya Krishna, Chaitanya Namni Goratise Namaha. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most merciful incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, sometimes incarnation is used, but it's used advisedly because he really is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in himself, and also carrying the mood, the bhav of Srimati Radharani for our benefit, very much for our benefit. Although his coming to this material world about 530, almost 40 years ago, the external reasons were for us. He had internal reasons connected with the bhav of Srimati Radharani, how Srimati Radharani loves Krishna. Krishna wanted to know. And so he comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we describe Supreme Personality of Godhead, we say he is one without a second. So his Vishnu form, those are incarnations or expansions for particular purposes. In this age of Kali Yuga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu are here in the most merciful form. Before that, when they were here as Krishna and Balaram, they got rid of the demons physically. But in this form, they're getting rid of the demonic mentality. And if you know what's going on in this world, boy, could we use that? Getting rid of demonic mentality in the world today. The world is in a big turmoil. And usually when that happens, that means something is about to erupt. And at the end, there will be a situation where people will just come to reason. Look back at what has happened and decide we're not going to live like that anymore. I mean, good sense follows sometimes, in the world especially, chaos. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada is describing, along with Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu, they belong to the same Vishnu category. They belong to the same Vishnu category. That means they are rightly referred to as the personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God, Nityananda is God, Advaita is God. So, even though that's the case, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the supreme, and the other two prabhus, the Prabhupada says, engage in the transcendental loving service to teach ordinary living entities that every one of us is subordinate to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Every one of us is subordinate to Krishna. That will never change. Our situation in the material world is because we wanted to change this statement. We wanted to be supreme. And so Krishna warned us, but we didn't hear him. That's what Prabhupada said in the answer to a question. Well, why did the Lord that is so merciful put us in the material world where there's a place of suffering and death and so on? And Srila Prabhupada answered, well, you forced Krishna's hand, which means he's implying that Krishna did not want us to come to the material world. But we wanted to be supreme. We wanted his position. And that's why we had to be taught a lesson that he is supreme and nobody's ever going to take his place. So if you want to be supreme, then go play like you're supreme in the other part of existence, literally, that I've created, the material world. And that's our situation. But the Lord is very loving. And he literally goes on through transcendental loving service. The ones that he pays attention to fully are the ones that are offering transcendental loving service to him. And so even though Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu all belong to the same Vishnu category, they are serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, the interesting thing is, as far as coming to this world, Advaita Prabhu came, Nityananda Prabhu came, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. So as far as the order of etiquette and behavior based on etiquette, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually wanted to always honor, in this particular case, Advaita Prabhu. But Advaita Prabhu was only going to be satisfied being labeled as the servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the pastime unfolded to even a situation where Advaita Prabhu, taught exactly what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not want people to know about. He literally took some impersonalist ideas, and this is again their pastimes. So you can't. Why did he do that? Well, that's their pastimes, but it unfolded in an interesting way, where Advaita Prabhu started teaching this type of theory of impersonalism. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard about it and confronted Advaita Prabhu, and actually chastised Advaita Prabhu. And of course, it is the master that chastises the servant. It's never the servant that chastises the master. It's always the master chastising the servant. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastised Advaita, then Advaita says, so now you're master. You are the master. And now you proved it by your action. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was trying to serve in order to prove to us what the etiquette should be about serving your seniors. But Advaita Acharya wanted to be in a position of servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's why that pastime unfolded, started by Advaita Prabhu. So this is all to get to the point of how important it is to be the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how more important, Sri Prabhupada says, When we're servant of a servant of a servant, and he says 1,000 times servant, 7,000 times, then we're more advanced, which means the more humble we are, the more advanced we will be. Put ourselves in that situation, that position that Srila Prabhupada is describing, means being a humble. Only a humble person would want to be the servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Servants. So those in the Vishnu category are showing that. Lord Nityananda and Advaita, they're showing. So we should also always put ourselves in the position of being servitor. We are Jiva Tattva servitors. We are. And the ones mentioned earlier, they are in the Vishnu Tattva servitors. But the common word is servitor. So we have to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, how do we do? Well, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tat vidi pranipatena paripashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadashina. Just approach the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master, and inquire submissively from him and also serve him. So we are charged with our first duty of practicing how to be a good devotee by serving the spiritual master. That is a very important aspect of our devotee life. We must serve the spiritual master without any hesitation. Without any hesitation. We're not serving the spiritual master, we're spiritually dead. That's what it amounts to. And the spiritual master service means you have to obey the spiritual master's instructions. Now, the spiritual master in our Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, the book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. The title itself obviously tells us what it is that the book will talk about for the most part. But there is a place in there that Srila Prabhupada, in his infinite wisdom, put the general practice that devotees should be about. He categorized some of them to positive functions and some the things that we should avoid. So the general practice for us is, if we're serious to go back to the spiritual world, where Krishna wants us, back to the spiritual world, then we have to accept the bona fide spiritual master so that we get trained scientifically. So we have to make ourselves students, and we have to be at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Arjuna did that. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, he was supposed to be in a friendship relationship with Krishna. But when it came down to it, and he needed answers, he says, please let me be your disciple, and you, Krishna, be the spiritual master. So in Bhagavad Gita, from that point on, chapter 2 on, Krishna is speaking as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as a role as spiritual master. Arjuna is a friend of Krishna, but his role was to be a disciple. So spiritual master and disciple relationships are critical to our success in Krishna consciousness. Second point, when the student has chosen a bona fide spiritual master, he must take proper initiation from him. Now, initiation carries two contracts, not one, two. The first one is between the bona fide spiritual master and the disciple. Disciple is accepting the spiritual master as his master, that he's going to do a number of things which will follow after this part. So that is the first contract. First contract is between the spiritual master and the disciple. The second contract is between the spiritual master and the spiritual world. And that contract is the spiritual master is saying, I will guide this disciple in his journey, his or her journey to the spiritual world. So the spiritual master promises to be the one who will be the guide for the disciple in order to help that disciple make it back to the spiritual world. Now, how will that happen? It only happens where the disciple or that candidate is prepared to satisfy the spiritual master in every way. And that is the third point. The candidate, the disciple, must be prepared to satisfy the spiritual master in every way. How is it? How should the satisfaction be done? It is very important to prioritize, give top priority to any instructions that the spiritual master gives to the disciple. When the spiritual master tells the disciple, do this, that thing that's been said becomes top priority in the disciple's life. So speaking about that, there are, my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj described 4 types of disciples. There's a first class disciple, second class disciple, third class disciple, and fourth class disciple. The first class disciple and the second class disciple have something in common. But the first class is the reason they are first class. The first class and the second class disciple both obey the bona fide spiritual master. Just like it says here, we have to whatever this disciple, the spiritual master says, the bona fide spiritual master says the disciple should do. The difference between the first and the second is the first class disciple has been around the spiritual master and been serving him for quite a while. And so there are some things he knows, he or she knows, the disciple knows that the spiritual master would expect to be done, expect him to do it, expect the disciple to do it. So it's got to the point where the spiritual master does not have to tell that disciple, do this, do this, do this. Some of those things the disciple will do automatically. So when the spiritual master comes to where that service has been done, he would realize it's already been done. So the disciple, to some extent, knows the spiritual master's expectations of him, the disciple, and does it. That is the first class disciple. Second class disciple we talked about already. But the difference is the second class disciple does not know the mind of the spiritual master. But anything that the spiritual master asks him to do, or him or her to do, he or she would do it. Now, that's where we should be, at least second class. Third class disciple. Then it gets to be a little murky. The third class disciple is the person who spiritual master says, do this, do that, and they start coming up with excuses. Oh, this is happening to me. Therefore, maybe I'll do it later. Maybe I'll try to do it later. I have this problem, Maharaj, so maybe I won't be able to do it. Or this part is a little funny that my spiritual master describes. Says, oh, well, Maharaj, you have first class disciple. Maybe first class disciple knows your mind. He's already done it, so I don't have to do it. In other words, one excuse after another. So that person does not take the instructions of the spiritual master seriously. Fourth class disciple, and before we talk about what a fourth class disciple does, and there are some that become fourth class disciples, I would strongly urge everybody hearing this, don't even dream of it. It's not worth being a disciple at all if you're going to be a fourth class disciple. What's a fourth class disciple? Fourth class disciple gets initiation from the spiritual master and takes off and says, I want initiation. I've got initiation. I've got my name. I'm so-and-so Das and so-and-so Dasi. Now I have arrived and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Meaning, I don't take anything from a spiritual master anymore. I've got my name and then they go about their lives. They do not serve a spiritual master at all. At all. So first class knows the Guru's mind. Everything the Guru says, he obeys, and also does things without even being told because he knows the spiritual master would expect it to be done. Second class doesn't know that, but everything the spiritual master says, he will do it. Third class is where the excuses start. and we shouldn't be at third class. And fourth class, I don't even know what it knew what initiation was about at all. That person there's no chance of going back to the spiritual world because he literally has broken the contract right from the get-go. So we should be prepared to satisfy the spiritual master in every way. Try to do our best. When he asks us to do something, this is also quite necessary. Sometimes we say, but the spiritual master gives me some work to do, and I don't know how to do it, but he still asks me to do it. What should I do? Well, I was in that situation. So I was living with Bhakti Maharaj at the time. We lived in 2 years until myself. So he gave me work to do, services to do. And sometimes I didn't know. And so one day he saw me between all my struggles. He explained to me. And with explanation, so it's 3 categories of service. Service to the spiritual master, 3 of them. One, if you know what to do, he's asked you to do something, well, that's, no argument there. He asks you, you should do it. You know how to do it, you get it done. But you have to get it done to the best of your ability. Just like I'm serving Krishna, how would I serve him? Spiritual master is representative of Krishna. So you serve him with your utmost ability. And of course, you also, as we talked about it, prioritize that service. That is the first thing. I need to get it done, or done as soon as possible. Now, that's doing it. The second is we have to do that service not only with the best of our ability, but do it in such a way that the spiritual master will be very pleased. It is very, very important, and it's literally a disciple's success in spiritual life if the spiritual master is happy with how the disciple is serving him. Sometimes they'll say it, and usually they'll just make a joke about it, but they're actually quite serious. At the same time, if the spiritual master talks about a few things, it's like he's joking about it, but he's not so happy with it. Take it seriously. And then literally, when spiritual master expresses an opinion, you should take it as an order. Even though he says it's just my opinion. So get the work done. And if you don't know how to do it, which is what we're talking about earlier, the second point about that, if you don't know how to do it, and you can learn how to do that service in a short period of time, then go ahead and learn. Maybe you go to some other disciple and, or another devotee, and you ask, my spiritual masters asked me to do this, and they give you pointers on how to go about it. And it seems, oh, okay, I know how to do it now based on what you described. And then go ahead and do the service. That's the second point. Third point is you don't know how to do the service. And it's going to take a while to do the service. And that is a situation I got caught in a few times. It is all right to get someone to get the service done. If you're going to be lost in doing the service, don't try it and do a bad job of it. Get help, and that person that is good at it, do that service. Because the Bhakti Maharaj explained to me, all the spiritual master wants is the service should be done. It may come from you. If you don't know it, then you find the help that it takes to get the service done. Help in terms of you learning quickly and doing the service yourself, or this is going to take a while. I don't have an expertise in it, but it should be done expertly. Therefore, I find somebody who is an expert at it to get it done. So when the spiritual master, fourth point, the spiritual master can be asked questions. It's there that we need paripashtena sevaya. Tad vidipatena paripashtena sevaya. Approach the spiritual master. Place questions to the spiritual master. Ask intelligent questions. 2 sets. One about spiritual life, devotee life. You can ask at any time, and the spiritual master is always merciful and will explain to you. Second point is the spiritual master gives instruction on service, some service that he wants you to do. You should ask questions for clarity about what to do. You should be totally clear about what's expected. So if there's any doubt, at the time the spiritual master is telling you do this, do this, do that, you need to come up with all important questions so that you're very clear, and that way you can offer the service at the best quality possible. Now, the candidate can also follow the footsteps of those great sages who have practiced the method of bhakti and obtained success. In fact, when you go to other books that are going deeper into devotional service, they'll tell you that you can, in fact, get or read or get to know a little bit more about one particular disciple of the Lord. You literally can have, quote unquote, a favorite disciple for whatever their reason is, how they serve, and try to get inspiration from how they serve, that particular personality serves Krishna. That's following the footsteps of those who practice it naturally, successful in practicing service to the Lord. Now, we also, this is an important point, the next point number 6. We'll talk about a couple more and then we'll wait for questions. The candidate or the disciple must be prepared to change his habits based on the instructions of the spiritual master and the Shastra. When we come to Krishna consciousness, a good many of us come in a mode of passion and ignorance. That's the way people are born. It's very rare to even have somebody born in the mode of goodness. The kind of family start in the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. So when they hear about Krishna consciousness, chances are they have some friends who are not Krishna conscious, and they are practicing habits of obviously sense gratification, probably violating all, if not some, of the regulated principles that we live by. They're probably living by it. Every one of the regulated principles, if you violate it, the 4 regulated principles, we are automatically into sense gratification. No intoxication. If you do intoxication, it's for sense gratification. No illicit sex. If you involve yourself in illicit sex, it's for sense gratification. Like that. All 4 of them are like that. So when we get fortunate enough to have our minds changed into Krishna consciousness, then these habits have to go. But these are habits of our quote-unquote material friends. So then that relationship has to be curtailed, if not broken off completely, at least curtailed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks about a Vaishnava. What is a Vaishnava? A Vaishnava is one who does not hang out or associate with non-Vaishnavas. So if we're in that situation, then, and sometimes it does happen, people go to work and the co-workers are non-devotees, and they have to work together based on whatever the job requires that they do, and they act nice to each other. So then, in their minds, we become friends, and then they want to pull us into social activities that involve sense gratification. But that's not what we should be about. So yes, do what's necessary on the job, but the social activity should be with devotees and not non-devotees. So find ways that change these habits, be nice about it, but give an excuse that's reasonable not to associate with non-devotees. That way we keep our devotional kripa intact. The candidate should also live in a spiritual atmosphere. These are all advice from Srila Prabhupada himself. Spiritual atmosphere. Well, that may involve going to a place of pilgrimage, but some people, many of us, don't live in places of pilgrimage. The closer situation is to come to the temple regularly, because the temple's business is 100% Krishna consciousness. As Srila Prabhupada says, the temples are embassies. The second point is also spiritualize our own homes. Make sure that there are pictures that remind us of bhakti, pictures of Krishna, Srimati Radharani, your spiritual master, other incarnations of the Lord, like that. And hear spiritual discourse. Hearing is very important at home, as well as, of course, the specific time set like this time in Zoom that we're hearing. As far as wealth goes, the disciple must be satisfied with as much wealth as is sufficient for maintenance only. He should not try to amass more wealth than is necessary to sustain himself in a simple way. These are words directly from Srila Prabhupada. He must be satisfied with as much wealth as is sufficient for maintenance. You also, of course, you have to put some aside. Rupa Goswami says for emergencies. That should be there. Money set aside for emergencies. But we shouldn't try to amass more wealth. So what about those that are by karma born into wealth? Not that they work hard for it, but it's there and it's theirs. It's been given to them by the family that they were born in. That situation should be one where a good bit of that wealth is used to support Krishna conscious projects. But if we do that, then we get spiritual credits for it. Even though we didn't have to struggle to make the money, the wealth is there, but you use it in Krishna service. Because if we don't, that wealth will be the reason we will actually not be successful in Krishna consciousness. We will get attached. And then attached means you go buy some toys, as quote unquote, things that are better than other people's, more expensive things. Next thing you know, Maya has caught us in sense gratification. We're right back in the same place that keeps us from going back. Back to Godhead. So, and of course, we should avoid offenses in the discharge of devotional service, and especially in chanting the holy names. The 10th offense is to be inattentive while chanting, but our mind roams like anything. Therefore, the more that we use some of our senses while we're chanting, that means the chanting comes from our tongue, but our eyes are there and our ears are there. Therefore, if we chant out loud, our ears hear the holy name. And when we use our eyes to see the picture of the spiritual master, the picture of the divine couple, any other, instead of your own deities at your house, looking at them while chanting, chant around Srimati Tulsi Devi, like that. All of that puts the mind in a devotional atmosphere, and it helps for our chanting to be steady. We have to watch the false ego, the most difficult part to deal with. And as far as false ego, we shouldn't pose ourselves like a vastly learned person, because we can quote statements in books, and therefore we just no. We have to be very careful that even somebody praises us, even if somebody praises us, oh, you know how to explain things so well, you always give the credit to Guru and Gauranga. See, by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, therefore I'm just like a channel. The ideas that's coming from my mouth are not from me. It's from the Supreme Lord and the Spiritual Master. You give the credit that way, then we keep ourselves in a humble position, a position of service. We're just being used. So we should never brag in any kind of way, directly or just give the impression that we're vastly learned. Never do that. Never, ever do that. It's Mayavadis that do something like that. We don't want to be Mayavadis. Finally, we shouldn't mock another person's religion or worship. Yes, we are at the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead the highest it can be. We are involved in Sanatana Dharma. But the others are also trying to come up. Therefore, we shouldn't mock them. We should praise what little did they do. And if they're open to us, because if we praise them, they'll like us. And if somebody likes you, they will listen to you. And if they listen to you, you can preach Krishna consciousness to them. So that's the way it should be. Never tolerate blasphemy against the Lord and his devotees. So with those, this is some of the negative things that we should avoid. So with those, then we begin to serve wonderfully. We won't be able to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead the way Lord Nityananda and Advaita, the way they do. But if we put in our very best, Krishna will appreciate what we do because he loves us very much, more than we know. We are people who have violated the way things are in the spiritual world, and we wound up in the material world as punishment. But the Lord loves us so much, he didn't leave us. He also comes to the material world as a super soul to be right in our hearts and to guide us. If we would listen to him, of course, because we have our own free choice of doing things, then we can go back to the spiritual world. If we listen. So, Advaita and Nityananda are wonderful servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Nityananda even took a blow from Madai just by telling Jagai and Madai, chant the holy name of the Lord, how important it is to chant. So it is our opportunity that we have in this material world to chant the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If we chant steadily and sincerely, we will get, at the very least, liberation. But if we chant purely, then we will develop love of Godhead. This is Haridas Thakur that explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's there. So we'll stop here. Thank you. By the mercy of Guru and Guranga for hearing me. I'm just a deliverer. I'm not the one that has originated these things. But today is also Nishinga Chaturdasi. We're fasting till the evening time. I'm sure there will be wonderful programs. Whatever temple that you're at that's closest to, please go to celebrate Nishinga Chaturdasi. And I'm sure there'll be lectures given there too about Lord Nishingadev. And Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for covering this class. Amazing verse, actually. Really, really powerful. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to request devotees. We have about 10-15 minutes because I do know that Prakrit has to get on the road for an appointment. So I'm being sensitive to that. But if anyone has a question, please do raise your hand, and I'll put it in the chat and I'll be happy to read it. We do have a question already in the chat from Daria. And her question is, you were mentioning that the spiritual master you're mentioning that the spiritual master makes a contract with the disciple and the spiritual world. I was wondering, what happens if the disciple is not able to reach that level? How does it affect the spiritual master if one is not able to adhere to the vows?
This is a loaded question.
Very powerful question. Very powerful. That many of us
different levels about this. First of all, any spiritual master will tell you, don't even think about failing. Because it complicates things. But to put it simply, if we're not able to go back because we didn't fulfill our terms of the understanding of what it is to be a disciple, the disciple gets given another chance. One of the good things is they'll be born again, but they'll be born in a human body. not a non-human body. Because a non-human body, we're stuck. Dogs and birds, they can't change the holy name. So human body, that's guaranteed, practically. The Lord, not for us, but the Lord, because of the Lord's mercy, we'll be born again. Either in a family of fixed up devotees or in a family that has wealth. It depends on what it was that stopped us from being able to go back to Godhead in that previous life. If money was a big issue, poverty did not make us take Krishna consciousness seriously, then the chances are very high they will be born into a rich family. If it was just that we didn't take the process of bhakti seriously, then we were born in a place where the parents are very, very, very fixed up in Krishna consciousness. So like a baby, we begin to learn and develop the habits even when they're that way, this small, when we're small. So in that case, we're not going back to the spiritual world, but we're given a chance to go back. Now, here's maybe a little bit of comforting news. We have been in this material world for millions of lifetimes. We don't remember because, of course, if we remember it, we'd be depressed badly. If we don't go back to the spiritual world, then we did some negative things. And I'd rather not know what those negative things are. So if we don't remember, don't worry about it. That's also the mercy of the Lord. But we've been here several lifetimes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, even if a devotee starts and doesn't take the process so as seriously as they should, on the average, no more than 3 lifetimes, the person will go back to Godhead. Srila Radha Govinda Maharaj has also said that if you say yes to Krishna, start your devotional life, you will definitely wind up in the spiritual world. Everybody that says yes to Krishna goes back to the spiritual world. The only question is, do you go back after this body or another body or maybe a body after that? Before we go back, getting better and better and better. Krishna always puts us in situations where our next life would improve from where we left off. That is his mercy. He allows us. That is his love and his mercy because he wants us to go back home, back to the spiritual world. Now, as far as the spiritual master's contract with the spiritual world that he lead the disciple back to the spiritual world, that's not on us. That's not on us. Our relationship with spiritual master is what matters. But that part of it, we make just a small comment about it. It doesn't mean that the spiritual master failed, because the spiritual master is one who instructs the person, but the spiritual master knows that the person also has free choice, free will. And so some things did be obeyed, some things may not be obeyed. That's, if we look at Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was disciple and Krishna was spiritual master. Before Arjuna even said that let's do spiritual master and disciple relationship, he was actually coming up with all kinds of important material reasons not to fight. And he was telling Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm not going to fight. So there is a free choice. Arjuna chose not to fight, and Krishna had to convince him that it was in his best interest to fight, even for material reasons. He said, you are known as a very, very wonderful fighter, and if you don't, people will say you're a coward. Would you live like a coward? Or with that kind of name? So, yeah, that part, if it doesn't, the contract between the spiritual master and the spiritual world already knows. If it falls apart, the spiritual master has done his part properly, then the spiritual master is not at fault, because we have our free choice. So sometimes we do what we want to do, but later on we'll find out that it was better to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, because this material world will give more and more and more complications. Kali Yuga Ki Jai. You know what I mean. Yeah, you'll go to craziness. So it's best to prepare to go, taking the process seriously. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hope that helped, Arya. But I liked what Parikshit said. We should first try to aim to pass and not think of failing. because I think when we start having that kind of consciousness and mentality, I want to pass, I want to pass, I want to pass, then the mercy flows.
Yep.
I was reading somewhere last week, I think, that, sometimes we think that Krishna's mercy is missing. Actually, Krishna's mercy is not missing. What is missing is our determination.
Mm.
It's our determination that's missing. To the degree that we are determined to pass, to that degree the mercy flows. So Krishna's mercy, because sometimes I've heard devotees tell me, Mataji, I'm going to so many problems. What is Krishna doing? Is he just standing up in Goloka Vrindavan and playing his flute and having fun with the gopis? That's what we think sometimes. No, how come Krishna is not, giving me the mercy? Krishna's mercy is there. It's the determination that's missing in the picture. So the more we are determined, then the more the mercy flows. And I was thinking of, and I was reading another quote by His Holiness Bhakti Dhiradamda Maharaj
Mm.
last week, powerful, powerful quote. It was so powerful that I started questioning myself, and the quote he said was, "We have to cry." He says, "Why are we not crying?" He says, when there are tears coming down our eyes and we're really crying, that is when the changes will happen. So he says, it all boils down to our determination, how much we really want to go back, how much we really don't want to be here, how much we really want to surrender, how much we really want to become a first-class disciple. Each one of us should uh, thrive to want to be a first-class disciple. How much, yeah, so it's all on us. The mercy is there. And I'll share with you a third quote. I follow a lot of quotes from different senior devotees and proper disciples. There was one quote that was shared by one devotee whom my first daughter got, and the question was, Krishna, why am I always facing problems in my life? And the response in that quote from Krishna was, to see how many times you remember me. So that was another quote, so and these are powerful quotes for us to self-introspect ourselves. How much am I crying? How much am I determined? How much do I want the Lord? And the more we do that, then the more we are able to surrender to our spiritual master, yeah. So the Guru is very merciful. It's very merciful. We just got to just serve to the best of our abilities. The Guru is there, and if we want to pass, he'll make sure we pass, right, Sri Devi? Sri Devi knows. If he wants to pass, he'll make sure we pass. Exactly. And but we just got to be ready to take that mercy from the Guru to pass the test. That's all. If it means banging our heads, if he means he takes his danda and knock our heads, yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's a
mercy
very
is
important.
there.
Yeah, very important point. If we are just to
Yeah,
piggyback on the last thing that you said, the mercy of the spiritual master is definitely there.
yeah.
And if we really, really want to go back, then whatever our anatas are, he still will help us, and Krishna will help us out of our anatas so that we can go back. As the saying goes, I've heard this is a very interesting one. It says, the spiritual master will help us back to the spiritual world, even kicking and screaming will still be pulled back to the spiritual world. In other words, that's for people who really want to go, but they still have anatas that's difficult for them to break. Krishna master and spiritual master and Krishna will help us in sometimes ways that are a little bit more intense, but it's to break those addictions that we have to the material energy so that we can go back home. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Yes. But very nice question, Daria. Very nice question.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
loaded.
much.
Very loaded
It's
question.
loaded, but it's
That's why we
really
spend so much
good.
time on it. Very good.
It's really good because this verse is about spiritual master, the Jiva Tattva, who is a servitor of God, you know? So it's a very nice question. Any other questions before we conclude? I just want to make sure that, I'm not missing anybody. Okay, if there are no questions, I want to thank all of you for joining us. And thank you for allowing us to serve in place of Chandramani Swami, who's in transit to get to Germany. And we hope all of you are having a blissful Nrsimha Chaturdasi until the next time we meet. Vanchakapatubhyascha kripasindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have
Hare
a wonderful, wonderful day. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu, so much. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Om
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Parikshit Prabhu. That was a power-packed class.
Krishna
Every
Guru's
sentence
blessing.
was loaded. There's so much to hear, so much to learn. I'm going to play it again because it was so dense, condensed milk type of thing, you know. So thank you
Krishna's
very
mercy.
much. Thank you,
What's up,
Prabhu.
Krishna?
Thank you. Hari Hari
Hare
Bol.
Bol.
Thank you, Ansuya. Thank you, devotees. Wish you
Hare
all a very
Krishna.
happy Narasimha Chaturdashi.
Ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.